Tonight we're going to continue the series on codependency, and tonight our topic is codependency and relationships. Just to backtrack for a couple of minutes, when we started the series we talked about the foundations of codependency, and I mentioned the definition of codependency is a very simple thing. I define codependency as any person, place, or thing that I've built a dependency on that makes my life unmanageable or makes my life crazy. That can be a person, that can be a place, that can be a thing, can be a lot of different things. Then we talked a lot about the concept of family systems and how they affect us in our growth process, how to be able to look at them and see where our patterns come from. Then last week we talked about how to play, how to have fun, and I gave you a whole bunch of wonderful assignments, and some people called me up this week and were mad at me because they were getting all upset because they had to change their patterns. It was fun, what can I tell you? But anyway, this week I want to concentrate primarily on the concept of relationships and codependency. Now you'll notice something about tonight's talk. Most codependents, because we never had our solid role models for relationships. Remember how this is supposed to work. For a little boy growing up, his mother is supposed to be his first love. She's supposed to be his role model for relationship. She is supposed to be the person that teaches him the guidelines for relationships. For a little girl, it's supposed to be daddy. So the foundations fundamentally come from our childhood systems. As a result then, very many times, many of us have realized because of different forms of dysfunctionality, and I said this so many times, every family is somewhat dysfunctional. Congratulations. Last time I checked, we're nothing but a bunch of human beings. So if you happen to be human, then guess what? You're probably dysfunctional. Congratulations. We have forms inside of ourselves. We're human. So as a result then, literally, so many times relationships were centralized around what I call the ultimate codependent word. They were centralized around control. And so many times we have a tendency, because we were out of control, to want to be able to be in control. And so many times we want things to be the way we want them to be. So when it comes to relationships, a lot of times we have a tendency to try to make somebody else into what we want. As I mentioned to you before, when it comes to relationships, try to keep this simple principle in the back of your mind, because I got to put it in the back of mind at least 3 times a day. The only relationship that you can have on the face of this earth is the one that you have with yourself. Everything flows from you out. Because of situations we've experienced in life, many of us have discovered what I call certain behavior characteristics that are connected to relationships. And so many of us go in different directions. For example, so many times coming out of homes where you've experienced emptiness and loneliness, fear, homes where you never got a lot of love, a lot of intimacy, or a lot of touch. So many times we have a tendency, when we become adults, to basically want to literally take somebody hostage who's willing to pay attention to us. When you never got attention, then when somebody does pay attention, it's almost like we go crazy. I call it, we get involved in one of the most powerful codependent relationships. It's called the Dracula relationship, which means we literally want to suck the other person dry because we're hungry. And so literally what I want to do basically is I want them to be everything for me. What I'm really saying to them is I want them to give me all the things I didn't get. And so many times we have a tendency to migrate towards a parent figure or somebody who will literally do for me what wasn't be done when I was a child. The other area very many times, especially people that have gone through a tremendous amount of shame, people have been hurt, have gone through all kinds of areas. So many of them are scared to death of relationships. So what do? I put up a wall and a barrier, and as a result then, I won't let anybody get close to me unless they fit the following criteria. And codependents are famous for criteria. So what I'm actually saying is, I'm going to set the guidelines for my relationships. And if you don't fit them, then I'm out of here. The only problem is so many times I set guidelines that are unattainable. Sometimes I'm creating my fantasy family, and I want them to be all these things. Then you find out later on, no matter what happens, they're going to screw up one of them. But see the safety valve? That means I always have a way out. I always have a way out. Again, it's based around expectations and around control. And the ultimate one is the individual who grew up in homes where they literally were responsible since they were kids. We call them caretakers. These are the ones who basically love to get involved in relationships with sickies, with those people who need help. And so then it's my job to run your life. It's my job to organize you. It's my life to fix you. It's my life to take care of you. So my life is centered around you. Now think about this for a minute. If you centralize your whole entire life around another human being, it means you have no life of your own. And so many times it's a tendency for caretakers to literally want to take care of somebody else, because if they do, then they can spend their time on that person and never have to look at themselves. And to me, the scariest part about relationships is looking at self. Now, let me give you what I call a case study. This case study, the 3/4 of what I'm going to share with you right now, is a true story. At the end of it, though, what I'm going to do is give you different scenarios. It can go this way if this happens, this way if that happens, this way if it happens. But the first part of this is actually a case study. It's a true story. I want you to visualize a young boy growing up in a home where he experienced physical abuse, mental abuse, grew up in a home where literally he was always told he was a piece of trash, he would never amount to anything. His father literally dumped on him all the stuff that was going on inside of him. At the same time, his mother, when he talked to his mother about it, his mother was scared to death of her husband, so what did she do? She made believe nothing was happening. I don't want to know, don't tell me, nothing's happening. Now, you have a little kid. He's getting abused and being told it's not happening. They talk about confusion. He's getting two messages from two different people. When he grows up, he goes to school. He's scared, he's lonely. He literally, functions in school, but he never really has a sense of himself as a person. So in the senior year, they asked him the $64,000 question. What are you going to do after you graduate? Of course, he doesn't know what he wants to do. He has no sense of life or anything in that direction. He's just a beat up person. So what does he do? He decides to join the army. See, basically, I don't like who I am, so he joined the army and he volunteered for Vietnam. Now, I have to do a little aside here. I often say to the adult children of codependents, when he volunteers for Vietnam, they find out that he's a good typist, and therefore they give him a job as a clerk typist in Illinois. But go inside the mind of a codependent, inside the mind of an adult child, of an abused child. He got rejected by everybody. Now he's not even good enough to die for his country. Even the army is rejecting him. So look what he does. He literally goes back to drinking, all kinds of behavior, because literally he's depressed and he's medicating himself. Now let's leave him in Illinois for a couple of minutes. We'll go back and get him in a second. Let's talk about the other side. We have a young lady who is Miss Wonderful, Miss Fantastic, Miss Goody Two Shoes. She is the oldest of 8 children. Powerful part about this young lady is that she's been taught her whole entire life how to raise children. Her mother's too busy having children, so she's literally raising children. So literally what's happening in her case, she becomes what we refer to as the ultimate codependent who relinquishes her childhood. She's Miss Nice, so she does everything right. As a result, then, when she grows up, she goes to school, and they ask her the question, what are you going to be? She decides she's going to be a teacher. Now, look at the rules she's learning. Her life is centralized around children. Now she's going to go into a profession where she'll have more children. So she's safe around children because she's comfortable there. If not that, it's probably a nurse, somewhere in the human services place, a social worker or somebody to that effect. As a result, then, it's literally taking care of other people. Now, watch what happens. The soldier in Illinois comes home on leave. He is introduced to Miss Wonderful and Miss Fantastic. They begin to date each other, and after a period of time, they go off to form the little house on the prairie. Now watch what happens. She's Miss Wonderful and Miss Fantastic. He's like a little kid, hungry, empty for love. They meet each other, boom. She decides she's going to take him on. She's going to take care of him. She's going to fix him, organize him. And guess what? As soon as they hook up together, she ends up having 4 children in a very short period of time. She picks up the pattern of her mother, and now she is barefoot and pregnant. He, in the meantime, stops drinking. He goes out and works 3 jobs. No problem at all. He's got this little cocoon, everything he always wanted. He's got this family, he's got everything put together, everything's great, everything's wonderful. She's having kids, she's staying home, doing all this. She relinquished her career. She never got around to teaching. So literally, her life is centralized around children again. The kids have the audacity to start growing up. Then they go off to school. And one day she's sitting on the side of the bed and she says, now she's a pretty intelligent lady. She says, is this all there is? Is this it? So what does she do? She loves to read. She starts reading a bunch of self-help books. Then she starts going to some workshops and programs and things to this effect. She starts learning all kinds of stuff about herself, and she's getting very excited because all those juices inside of her are being stirred up again. But of course, she doesn't want to get him upset. So she doesn't tell him what she's doing. So she's walking on eggs around him, at the same time having another life out here, enjoying what she's doing, at the same time around the house. Now, there comes a point where now she's going to tell him. She says, listen, I've been going to these programs. I got involved in this stuff. I'm learning so much about myself. Why don't you come with me? Now, let's look at scenarios. The ultimate scenario would be that he would say, great, I'll go with you, we'll learn different things, and we'll grow together. That's one scenario. Another scenario, it happens a lot of times in situations like this, he gets scared and he gets afraid because the cocoon is now beginning to fall apart. He gets scared. So what does he do? He's a child inside. By the way, she doesn't have 4 children, she has 5. She has him. So what does he do? He tries to rally the kids around and let's bring mommy back to the cocoon. Let's get her back into the fold. So there's dynamic going on in the family system now. As a result, then, what happens is he literally gets scared and afraid and wants her to stop going to these crazy people, listening to all this crazy stuff. In short, stop growing. We had a wonderful, wonderful situation, and you're screwing it up. So as a result, then, literally, if she does begin to work on stuff and he chooses not to, over a period of time, what's going to happen is she's going to start growing, he's not going to be growing, and something's going to begin to happen. And it's scary. At the same time, another scenario is that he's determined to straighten her out. So what does he do? He goes with her to the programs so he can find out what they're saying, so when he gets home, he can straighten her out. By the way, I'm using the term he and she, but it could be the other way around. It could be a lot of different things. It could be he and he. It could be a lot of different things. It doesn't make a difference. And many of us in this room have experienced this. When you really do start to invest in yourself and work on yourself and begin to grow as a person, many times people around us get nervous, they get upset, and they get scared. They do that because they're used to us being a certain way. They're used to us functioning in a certain way. They're used to how we are. So as soon as we begin to change and we begin to grow, we actually begin to scare them. Because the bottom line is, literally deep down inside, I literally am scared that someone's on a growth process. Now, let's say they separate and down the road get a divorce. Now, here's the scary part about this whole thing. In his mind, she will always be his mother. And no matter what happens, she will continue in that role. Now, a true story, this is where this situation has occurred. We have a gentleman who lives very close to here. You know, I can't divulge anything, but this happened quite a few years ago. He has been divorced and separated from his wife for 11 years. Of course, in his mind, he is not divorced. His ex-wife is remarried. He calls her on the telephone every so often and says to her, "The house is here, I'm here. When you're ready, come home." Now, we label that as sick. But go inside his mind for a couple of minutes. Because of all the abuse and the craziness, if he doesn't work through all that stuff, literally, it's almost like he's being abandoned again. And somehow, some way, he's got to get that back. Or what he will do is literally do something called rebounding and go find somebody else to fill the void. One of the scariest things I ever experienced, you know, and you work in this field as long as I've worked, you see a lot, what can I tell you? One of the scariest things I ever experienced was a lady that came in to see me, and she said these exact words to me. She said, "Vince, I met this guy. He is really nice. He is really wonderful. We've been living together now for almost 2 years. But he has some strange behaviors." I said, "What?" "Well," she said, "I don't understand why in our bedroom he has a photograph of him and his ex-wife." I looked at her and said, "Come here." I said, "Not only is he sick, you're sick." "But he's so nice. He's so wonderful. I enjoy being around him. But sometimes in our conversations, all he talks about is her. Because theoretically, she's his mother." And this pattern of actually finding what I call other parents, because you don't get your needs met in another direction, is very normal. That can be healthy and it can be unhealthy, based on how you handle it and what you do with it. But I share this with you because I use it as a case study, because so many of us don't realize patterns we've developed in our life because of our own emptiness, our own feelings, the things going on inside of us. And all we can do on our journey in recovery is take the time to look at ourselves and work on ourselves. I have said this so many times. To work on yourself is a full-time job. You can't work on anybody else. The hardest part for us is learning how to let go. Because I truly believe in that control principle. I can use an analogy to show you how codependents operate. By the way, the stuff I'm telling you is a lot of my own stuff, so it was a lot of fun talking about this stuff today. Watch how codependents operate. I want you to visualize an adult child codependent sitting on top of a clock, which has a pendulum on it, and literally grabbing the pendulum and holding it in their hand and wondering why the clock isn't working. After you work with them for a long period of time, you convince them to let go. Here's how codependents let go. Let go with this hand and catch it with this hand. I wonder why it's not working. Because the scariest thing of all is letting the sucker go, because then it's going to go whoo and swing widely. It'll take time for it to balance out. But we're codependents. Here's the thing we love to do. We love to, first of all, make sure everything is always okay. I can never figure that one out. Secondly, we have a tendency to want to keep everything secret. Don't tell anybody what's going on. Don't say what's out. We don't want to get embarrassed. Our neighbors might find out. Somebody might know. We keep all these crazy secrets. You learn from the program. We are as sick as our secrets. They will destroy you. They're scary. And thirdly, so many times as codependents, we have a tendency to stay in situations that are totally unhealthy for us. But somehow, some way, we are going to make it work if I have to kill you. I'm going to make it work. We get that intensity inside of ourselves because if I don't make it work, then I'm a failure. But the bottom line is, in the major areas of codependency, and again, I can speak from a personal point of view, so many times we have a tendency to want to work on other people. And I know what that's all about. I mean, I always joke about this. I've joked so many times with you, but when I got ordained a priest, I was going to save the whole world. I kept forgetting this one person. I kept forgetting me. After, some time in a psych hospital and time in, through a couple of addictions, other kind of crazy behavior, it took me a few years, what can I tell you, to get to a point where I finally began to realize the fact I can't fix anybody and I can't save anybody. And the hardest thing in the world for most of us is to let go. But I'll tell you a secret. If you really do spend time working on yourself and do invest in yourself as a person, and I call this the ultimate relationship. If you actually do that, then you'll be able to accept others where they are. Because I've learned something from my own family system. And again, look at the concept and I'll kind of share it with you. When I was a priest, and again, I come out of a typical Italian family, I was literally what we refer to as the Italian priest. Now, coming from Italy and part of the history, my mother literally planned my priesthood, organized it, and got me taken care of, and basically put me in there when I was 14 so she could protect me and nobody would hurt me, and I wouldn't have to deal with those females, all that kind of stuff and everything else, So I was well protected, what can I tell you? So the concept is my mother basically made me into her spouse. As a result, my life was centralized around her. Her life was centralized around me. I mean, I still laugh about this. When I was 40 years old, I went to visit my mother in Camden, and I walked in the door. First thing she said to me was, "Your elbows are dirty. Come on upstairs. I'll wash them for you." I says, "Hey, you gotta be crazy. Make me nuts. My elbows are dirty. What can I tell you?" But again, it's that whole concept, where basically I will always be her little boy. Now, so many of us don't realize this, that when we finally begin to grow up, make changes, and make decisions in our life, we scare people. Well, when I was in the priesthood, coming from a strong Italian family, I performed all the weddings, all the funerals, all the baptisms, all the graduations. I did them all. When I made a choice after getting healthy to make a decision to leave, I went from the top of the family totem pole to the bottom. The only way I found out somebody died, I had to read an obituary column. But again, the scary part about it was, for a long period of time, is because they literally could not accept my decisions and things I was working on. At the same time, I'm a good codependent. So what did I do? I decided to go fix them. And that was an adventure. I can still remember going home to my wonderful, fantastic Italian family and saying to them, guess what? I just found out we're a dysfunctional family. They were excited to get the news. I brought all the self-help books home. They could read them. We could work on this stuff. And I can still remember people saying to me, they thought I needed a bed in Ancora. Someone said to me, you know, you go to college and you come home crazy. You come home nuts. But I learned something in the recovery process. The mistake I was making is one that many of us as codependents make. I wanted them to understand. I wanted them to get on board. I wanted them to be there. I had the hardest time accepting them where they were. And I think I'm finally beginning to understand this process. They are allowed to be whoever they are. And I have to learn to love them where they're at. So what do? I go visit some of my relatives. I mean, thank God, quite a few of them now are connected to recovery, and things have changed because the older generation is just about gone. But I go visit some of my, my family, and guess what? We don't talk about recovery. If I use the word recovery with some of my family members, they want to know if I had an operation. We talk about their bunions, how many knee replacements they had. We talk about the old neighborhoods in Camden of years ago. We talk about all the stuff that they're comfortable talking about. And you know what? I'm comfortable too. Because I'm able now to accept them where they're at and not want them to be where I think they should be. Because guess what? They're where they're supposed to be. It's their journey. That is the hardest thing for us to begin to understand. Because literally in the course of our journey in life, codependents, we even do it in relation with our children. And I hear this so many times. People come up to me and they'll say, I don't want my kids to go through what I went through. And I say to them, why not? And they say, what do you mean? I said, well, guess what? They're going to go through whatever they've got to go through. No matter what you share with them, you might be the top-notch #1 parent on the face of the earth. And your child may end up in all kinds of trouble and dysfunctionality. All you can do is give people your love, be open with them, and be able to accept where they're at, not where we want them to be. And that's scary. Even though we know deep down inside, it can work. I mean, how many phone calls I get here, and I love these phone calls. I always love the phone call that comes in, one of the classic ones. A mother calls me up and says, I'd like you to help my son. And I say to her, how old is your son? 43. Says, but he's got all kinds of problems, this, that, but do me a favor, she said, would you give him a call and talk to him? And then comes the punchline, but don't tell him I told you to call. This is classic. Now, hi, my name is Vince. I work at a treatment center. Anybody there need any treatment? It's insane. And yet, I understand where she's coming from. She's hurting, she's going through changes, and she's scared. It's all normal. Because she wants the best for her son, which is fantastic. But the hardest part is being able to let go and only do what can be done. So you can plant seeds. The old saying they had, they say it all the time, I can lead the horse to water, I can shove the sucker's head in the water, but I can't make him drink the water. People will move towards recovery when they're ready to move towards it. the move towards personal growth when they're ready. And I thank God today that more and more young people are opening their hearts to this stuff. I mean, you come to the NA meeting here on Thursday nights. It is so fantastically grateful to see so many young people sitting around this room, connecting and sharing with each other. Such a powerful experience. So great, and sure, many of them have been to hell and back. Many of them have spent time in the county jail. But now they're all trying their best to grow and learn. And I have seen people on all different types of programs and different things we're connected with here. I can see the miracles walking around the rooms. I can see what happens. But I've learned something. You've got to go through struggle to come to the other side. Nothing can be given to you easily. You know, in my desk, in my office, I carry a magic wand. I bought it at the dollar store. By the way, if you're a parent, pick one up. What can I tell you? Mine actually changes colors. It's pretty neat. People come in, and in 6 minutes, they want you to straighten their whole entire life out. I take the wand out, I wave it over their head. Nothing happens. Then I ask them the $64,000 question. You want to do your work? Oh. See, as codependents, we want to get everything straightened out by nightfall. We're amazing people, all of us. I mean, I did all this stuff, so it's crazy. I can laugh about it today. It's almost like, Vince, give me the right books to read, show me what to do, and I'm going to take them home, I'm going to analyze them and read them, and I'll straighten everything out by tomorrow morning. That's why codependents, if you give them a self-help book, they'll be up to 5, 6 o'clock in the morning reading it. They got to get it all in right away. Recovery and growth is a slow, gradual process. Recovery and growth comes from struggle, comes from going through different things in life, comes from facing things in life. And people always say to me, when do you get to that point? Everything is okay, wonderful, and fantastic. And I tell them, 10 years after you're dead. For codependents, 40 years after you're dead. We don't even give up then. What can I tell you? It's totally amazing. But the thing you have to learn about recovery is we have to learn how to have a sense of humor. Even have to laugh at ourselves. Because some of the crazy stuff that we do is just unbelievable. We get so serious. You know, we've got to get this thing straightened out. Why? It'll work the way it's supposed to work. Now, will some people not make it? Yes. Will there be a lot of hurt and a lot of pain sometimes? Yes. But the one thing I've learned in my own journey, and I continue to learn it every day, especially when I say my prayers in the morning, I pray for this every day. I pray to my higher power that for today, I will try to the best of my ability to learn something about myself. And if I can grow a 1/4 of an inch today, I made progress. And that's enough. I pray that no matter who I meet, who I get connected to, that somehow they'll be my teacher. I'll be able to learn something from them. I pray for an open mind. I pray to realize the fact that I've got to let people be who they are. I can make suggestions, but I can't do it for them. That is the hardest part of all. And I'm so grateful to my middle stepdaughter. When I first got married, as you know, I inherited 3 wonderful teenagers, all female. Anyway, my middle stepdaughter finally said to me one day, she said, Vince, you're a nice guy. Won't you stop doing therapy on us? I said, okay. Because I was still at that stage way back then where, you know, now you got to learn this, you got to do this, you got to do that. I've learned, let them on their journey. You know what's so beautiful about letting them on their journey? They grow. They grow in spite of us. But yet they've got to go through their struggles. people in good, healthy relationships have struggles. I've yet to meet a relationship that there are no problems, everything's wonderful, everything's great, there are no struggles, everything's fantastic, everything's unbelievable, and I think they're robots. Even they get screwed up. See, it doesn't work that way. We learned this from our 12-step program, which is so beautiful. They tell us every experience that we go through in life, well, one day, if we're able to face it, embrace it, accept it, and be open to it, one day it will become our strength. If we learn to face our fears, and fear is normal, you will realize that one day that fear, once you face it, embrace it, and walk through it, it no longer exists. It then becomes what all of us are. It becomes the powerful energy of love. See, remember something in this room, and I share it the best I possibly can. We are all lovers in this room. We are powerhouses of love. But the thing that keeps us from discovering it is because we are constantly looking at our fears. Fear literally covers over the energy and spirit that we have inside of ourselves as a person. And what I've learned in my own recovery process, I've learned that if I truly am able to face things, then from them, growth will take place. And by the way, nothing happens by accident. And it's not about how many credentials you have. It's not about how much you've learned. Everything in life is based on experience. And my father had a second-grade education. The man was a philosopher. Some of the stuff he taught me was unbelievable. And nothing complicated. Like that phrase he used to always say, Sonny. I always loved that. You don't know what it is to get up until you fall down. Don't be afraid to fall down. It's okay. Because then you discover the other part. So you have to be able to experience what people in history have told us over and over again. From a lot to, from different programs and things down the line, the Chinese philosophers, people, some of the great mystics have said it. A good, healthy life is a balance of negative and positive, the yin and the yang. We should have a balance of both. For good energy and for life, we have a balance of negative and positive. If you have too much negative, guess what? You'll beat yourself to death. If you have too much positive, you'll beat yourself to death. You have to have balance. Everything in life is centralized around that. And relationships are exactly that. You're in a relationship with yourself to develop balance in your life. And will you get out of balance? I hope you do at least once a day. It lets you be in touch with your humanness. And be able to have the tools to be able to bring it back into balance again. That's okay. So we're talking about relationships and codependency. What are we talking about? We're talking about letting go of control, being open to learn and grow as a person, being open to the journey of life, not knowing the answers, and realizing the fact all I can do is walk the journey. And I pray I'm able to walk it with others. The biggest mistake we make as codependents is we try to walk it alone. The two dangers of codependency is doing everything myself, and secondly, having the answers to everything. Remember, this is the sickest part of your body. It's called the control tower. Because so many things in life just don't have answers. For example, if you're an addict, congratulations. You're an addict. Now, you want to analyze it? You want to go through all kinds of crazy stuff? Have a ball. I said, what I love about codependence, we have this wonderful thing, which I just love. The answer is right in front of us. What do? We go down the block, around the corner, back through the next county, come back through this way, and eventually, one day, you come right back here again. Been there all the time. The answer is very simple. This is your journey. Each one of us is on the greatest journey there is on the face of the earth, called the journey of life. Each one of us is special. Each one of us is beautiful. Acknowledge yourself. Honor yourself. Be in touch with yourself as a person. And realize, if you truly, truly walk the journey of life and learn about yourself, I'll tell you a secret. Don't tell anybody, okay? You will carry the message to others by the way you live your life. I truly believe that energy from the inside flows to the outside. It's not what somebody says. It's by their actions and by the way they live their life and by who they are as a person. Real simple and real plain. And that's all it is. That's why this beautiful program, these 12 steps, the traditions, all the things we've learned, they're just principles of life, that's all. They're foundations for life. And the simplest thing is, do the best you can with it. Do the best you can. And whoever you are, congratulations. You're God's creation. Isn't it neat? That means you're this wonderful powerhouse of love. Be open to it and be open to the journey. Now, I want to finish this first segment of our codependency series next week. I want to talk about the roles that codependents play. And I love this little talk because we don't realize how so many of us were programmed into certain roles. And then we play them. And the crazy part about it is we don't even know we're playing them. I love it. And yet, it's all part of the journey.